Okay, guys, so here's something I forgot to do yesterday and the previous day, basically. I've been kind of accidentally forgetting all of this, but yeah. So a little while ago, about a couple days ago, I talked about a vid, well, not a vid, a collaboration fanfiction, another one I'm doing with Jason Voorhees 2011. The first one we're doing is Acts of Vengeance, and I know a lot of people have been asking about Acts of Vengeance and where we're with that. We are still working on it. We're still playing with a lot of stuff. This is a very big is a very big fan fiction, as well as this, which is the second collaboration we're working on. I've done stuff like co-plotting and writing some bits here and there for a lot of his fan fiction, a lot of his fan fiction stories. But yeah, this is actually our second our second collaboration fully, with the first being Acts of Vengeance, like I said. And much like how Acts of Vengeance is an adaptation of a Marvel event back from the late 80s, this is a kind of adaptation, or based upon, or whatever you want to call it, of the DC event Forever Evil. Now, no, this does not take place in the DC universe. This in no way takes place in the DC universe. This instead takes place in a merged cartoon universe where you've got like Danny Phantom, Pen-Zero Part-Time Hero, Ninja Turtles, all these other characters combined into one universe, and they're all existing here. And much like in Forever Evil, something has happened that has caused the heroes to disappear. And in place of that is a group called the Syndicate. Now, the Syndicate, much like in Forever Evil, where it was the Crime Syndicate of America who took over the world after the Justice League were, sent into that little black hole, this is actually, much like the Crime Syndicate, is a reverse version of certain heroes. And this version of the Syndicate is led by a reverse Mabel, who is, the best way I could describe her is kind of like a combination of like Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat and Lex Luthor. Yeah, just kind of wrap your head around that. She's kind of like a little bit of Pinhead thrown in there as well. But yeah, she's totally dangerous and in charge of a reverse group of supervillains who are, they've taken over the world. They've claimed they've killed the superheroes of the world and now have all these supervillains working for them. Well, not exactly all of them, because there is a small number of supervillains who are opposing their rule, much like in Forever Evil, where it was Lex Luthor, Bizarro, Captain Cold, Black Adam, and Black Manta, as well as Sinestro, and Catwoman, and Deathstroke, and Batman, who survived the whole Justice League disappearing after Trinity War. This is a team led by David Xanatos, the former main villain of Gargoyles. And in here, he's putting together a villain resistance team alongside Vlad Plasmius, main villain of Danny Phantom. And the two of them are getting together other villains who are like, we're not following the Syndicate. No. But yeah. So of course it follows that. However, this isn't exactly a full-on while this is kind of based on the DC event, we are kind of throwing a little bit of another comic book storyline in here. Jason suggested that he wanted to throw in a bit in here that I actually loved and could really differentiate from the rest of the story, because in Forever Evil, the Justice League was gone. Justice League Dark, Justice League America, and the main Justice League team were gone. In here, however, like 95% of the heroes are gone. So the villains now have, they outnumber the superheroes, and yeah, there's not many. In fact, I don't think there's any left. All of them are gone. They all disappeared, with the exception for maybe one or two. Not going to say who is still around. But yeah, much like how Batman survived the encounter with the Crime Syndicate, another hero two heroes, not going to go into full detail, managed to come back from that fateful event. But yeah. So, yeah, in here, the villains are now having free reign. Getting back to what I was originally saying, the villains now are having free reign over a majority of the world. They're now much like in Old Man Logan, where the villains, after defeating the superheroes, they manage to carve up pieces of territory for each person. They just carved up territories for one another, and are now ruling and even at war with one another, while the Syndicate more or less are just sitting, just sitting around like, yeah, we rule this place, you guys can take what you want, but everything you do, remember, you may rule your little territories, but you work for us. So that's kind of how it is, that the Syndicate is allowing all these villains to claim territories all across the world. I'm talking Cobra, they get a huge chunk of the world. The U.S. is carved up by other supervillains. Even little towns like Townsville from Powerpuff Girls is now, much like in Arkham City, or better put, Arkham War, Townsville's been carved up into little territories throughout Townsville by other supervillains. And you've got so many other things going on in here. This is also the introduction for, I guess you could say, at least in Jason Voorhees 2011 stories, that this is the introduction of another show he started watching, and he told me he really liked it. And, it's been a lot of fun. Now, you're probably wondering, well, who is going to be joining Xanatos' villain resistance group outside of Vlad? Well, I don't want to spoil that. I really don't want to spoil that, because as of this recording, the chapter isn't out yet. But I will say that the team's going to be a little bigger than Lex's team was in the event. And we thought of some really cool ideas here and there. There's even a version of another character there's even some other members of the Syndicate, 3 more members of the Syndicate, that we have not revealed yet. As of this recording, that's going to change very soon. There are 3 other members of the Syndicate that have not appeared yet. One is kind of not real, is a reverse version from a comic book series that we've seen. Not a comic book superhero, but if you know your shows, and if you've read your comics centered around a certain IDW comic, then you probably know what version of a certain giant robot we're going to be using. I think I've said enough as it is. So there's 3 more members that we're going to introduce to the Syndicate. That the first 7, I'll go ahead and say the first 7 you see in the prequel. That I wrote the whole thing for that. That team is Mabel. Keep in mind these are the reverse versions. But it's Mabel, Steven, Penn from Penn Zero, Danny Phantom, Reverse Kim Possible. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, because now I'm I hate when I put on these spotlight moments. Because it's like, oh yeah, I know this. Where did it go? Yeah, so we have also reverse versions of Star Butterfly and Marco Diaz from Star vs. the Forces of Evil. And that's all of them. That is the first 7 members of the group. And like I said, the reverse version of Mabel is in charge of this version of the Syndicate. And we tried to do our best to make it look a lot different, and we actually thought of some really cool backstory for Mabel, and just show how, whereas our, I guess you could say these are the Earth 2 versions, but the Earth 1 version of Mabel is all happy-go-lucky and all cheery. This Mabel is not. She's gonna do, we've already talked about all the really scary shit she's gonna do to the other villains, and what she's going to do when she goes to Gravity Falls. Because we've already I guess I don't want to spoil what happens there, but when she eventually goes to Gravity Falls, this version of Mabel, it's not gonna be pretty. That's all I think I need to say on that. But hope you all enjoyed this. Like I said, I wrote the first chapter. I guess you could say the prologue. Prologue, first chapter, whatever, tomato. And as always, I will leave a link for you so you can read the fan fiction yourselves. And once again, this was not just fully me. I just came to the idea with Jason, and he loved it. And now we're really on full-on collaboration for this. So this has been a lot of fun. So give a lot of love to Jason Voorhees 2011 as well. Leave a review if you can for the fan fiction, because that's always appreciated. Jason and I would really appreciate that. Also go subscribe to his channel here on YouTube, as well as, give him a follow, because he does a lot of other cool fanfictions on fanfiction.net. But anyway, once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.